Everyone, and welcome to my exposition about new architecture for my class of modern architecture. My name is Francisco Huerta Sanchez, and I will explain you today about this avant-garde. First, I have to tell you, the context. In 1924, Theo van Dorsburg wrote Towards a Plastic Architecture. It was part of this new avant-garde born in the Netherlands, which came with the Stiegel Group, which was a group of architects, painters, and artists in general that came out from this new modernity plan of architecture that started in Europe. We could see it, for example, in France. We could see it with Mies van der Rohe. We could see it in Russia with the modernism. We could see it in the art with the cubism, with for example with Italian futurism, with expressionism of Germany. Sorry, and well, this was it's part from the Netherlands. It was also and a magazine uh, it came out in the 1917, and in this towards plastic architecture they started describing what their manifesto was. I have to also talk to you about the neoplasticism, which was part of it. Peter Cornelis Mondrian was a beginner of it, and it got inspired a lot in the Cubism, in Picasso a lot. We could see, for example, here a perfect representation of this avant-garde. Red, yellow, blue, black and white composition of the 1921st is a painting where the lines, the geometric figures, squares, rectangles, and of course, like the use of the color in not as a component of a painting, but just like an actor, like the main character of this painting, is very important because he said that figures and colors can be by themselves like the whole composition of the art of the painting. Also in this one, we could see exactly what he meant with using the main colors, for example, red, yellow, blue, black, and white. Exactly them were everything. And it's kind of interesting because it reminded us a lot to the constructivism of Russia. It was also called the Netherlands constructivism. It came out in the same time, as I told you, as part of the modernity, like the modernity art. I have to tell you now about the Rietveld Schiller House because it implemented for the first time the new plasticism and the Stichel art that they manifested. The creator was Gerrit Rietveld, as you can see it, and he was not only an architect, he also made a lot of like furniture. So for example, this red and blue chair, which was completely inspired by this avant-garde of the Netherlands, and like is a representation, the full representation of this art in a house. So so it's so important, and I will analyze it today, and I will tell you about like the combination, the implementation of the towards a plastic architecture from Duisburg into this house. Before of it, I will remind you this new plasticism of architecture was uh, was responding to this context of the modernity, the industrial revolution, the using of new materials, and etc. And one of the main things that it means with plastic architecture is that elements like the walls, the windows, the use of lights, the spacers are plastic, and they have to be treated as that, as plastic elements. They also tell us something that reminds us to write. That is that the elementarism, that the elements makes the whole, the everything. Something that is very inspired and inspired a lot to Frank Lloyd Wright, which I will talk to you about in a few seconds. But first, I think that one of the principles of towards a plastic architecture that implemented into this This house was the 8 point, which he talked us about the open ground plan. It means about like opening the area of the main plan of the house, not as a classic home where like the places are separated, but where are integrated into the same space, as I told you, like how all the small parts, all the elements make the whole. In this ground plan, we could see how like they're like placed, how they are like into the second floor plan. Here in this perspective, in this picture, we could see it perfectly how like spaces are not completely separated. They can be maybe from with these walls that moves, but it works in the same space. And also in this diagram, we can see how these small like walls that are movable, they only respond to maybe like the use that will have that space, like the bathroom, but all of it are integrated in one place that can be moved. Other point from the principles of towards a plastic architecture is space and time, meaning that, for example, the use of lights, the way this new architecture um, like is responding to the use of the person inside of this place. I think it's very recognizable from this home. And of course how like the elements are plastic. For example, in this picture we could see like the colors, how they are like responding to the use that will happen of the inside, how the lights enter from a lot of sizes from the to the place, not like for example the neighbor in this picture. And in this perspective that is illustrated, we could see, of course, the use of light as an active role, not only a hole in the wall, but just like something that it's very essential to be there. That, for example, that window, it's not only a place for entering light. It's a very important element that is integrates with all the other elements. And I wanted to integrate formless and anti-cubic principles in the same page, because I think it responds to the same. For example, in this diagram, we could see how the new architecture tries to be not the classical cube, the classical box like of a European home, uh, but it had to respond to the use that it will have of the inside. For example, here we could see how the zones are separated, but it doesn't stays in this cube. It like deforms. It creates something new. And also the anti-cubic, for example, as for example the architect Frank Lloyd Wright told us, the destruction of the box. Here we can see how it responds to the inside use, and at the same time how the facade is plastic. Um, the we could see the use of this space like open areas for the outside, how like the ground, the entrance is hidden and it's not like for example the neighbor that it's like a classic architecture edification in Europe. So I will talk to you about Frank Lloyd Wright and how it's so important for this movement, how of this avant-garde, and at the same time how it was important for him, because both at the same time were like responding to each other. Frank Lloyd Wright with its organic architecture in the U.S. and these all avant-gardes in the Europe. So I decided to present you the Holy Hawk House, built in the 1921st, and we could analyze how the same principles that I just told you are implemented in this edification. So a ground plan, we could see it, for example, in this picture, how the whole place, usually like how a classic in Frank Lloyd Wright, are around a centrical space that is like in the middle of the public zone, and it responds to a function. So yes, like the living room, for example, behind, and this part, the entrance are interconnected in an open ground plan. Space and time, we can see here how the windows are an active role. They're not only holes in the wall, but they have a very important purpose in this house. We could see how it's so important how like depending on the time and the hour of the day, they're like moving, it's changing. As I told you, it's an active role. And the anti-cubic, of course, Frank Lloyd Wright told us about the destruction of the box, and we could see in this organic architecture how the classical horizontal line is all over the place. It responds to the function of the house. For example, like in this garden that he put it, the entrance, well, it's not a cube, definitely. And finally, I will tell you like what I think that are the main differences and like my interpretation, the similarities between the new plasticism architecture and the organic from Frank Lloyd Wright. I think that they're similar in the use of geometrical figures and the use of the lines. For example, in the horizontal lines, like these in this house, we can see them very clearly. Also in the responding of light, it was a very important and essential thing of both architectures, the the use of lights and how it integrated with the inside. Also the use of colors. Here it's an important role, the color, the colors red, yellow, blue, black, and white. But for example, for Frank Lloyd Wright, it was not maybe the main thing because the colors were very responding to the materials of its architecture. For example, stone, brick, concrete, or other things the place had. The wood, of course, were like integrating with the place where they were. In my opinion, the new plasticism were not completely integrating with the nature around, like it did with the organic architecture. I think there are a lot of things between them. As I told you, it's so interesting to understand how they both developed and grew in this context of a modern architecture, and how all the avant-gardes around them, like I told you, the constructivism, the cubism, the futurism in Italy, expressionism or expressionism of Germany, and a lot of new avant-gardes that were like Mies van der Rohe, for example. We could see definitely like the inspiration they're growing in the from the same context of the modernity, but in my opinion, they're going to different paths in their way, inspiring by themselves, but at the end of the time, like um, responding to their context, to the American context of a per house, for example, or to the Netherlands, or to the socialist constructions, or to the expressionism of Germany. And that's my opinion. Thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you learned something today, and I hope I taught you something. Goodbye.